So I was reading this book on Kindle Unlimited called $1,000,000 Habits, 27 Powerful Habits to Wire Your Mind and Success. I read that book because I'm all about knowing those habits, which habits will help you grow and succeed faster. And I realized that that's very important, especially when you're trying to improve yourself. And I learned a couple of lessons from here. So the very first one is trying something new. So when you're trying something new, you're able to let your brain know that you have the capacity to learn something out of your normal routine. So we often think like, oh, I don't want to learn something new because I don't think I'll need it. And whenever you start thinking like this, you're trying to avoid that aspect of knowledge, that aspect of you knowing more things, because you don't think you'll need them. But when you do those things, it's actually not a good thing. So trying something new, you discover a new routine, learn how to cook something new, learn how to bake something new. That's very, very important. Another one is be curious. When you're curious, you're always asking a question, like why something happens the way that it happens, or why are we programmed to do something this way. When you start questioning what you're doing, that's very helpful. You won't be surprised when opportunities come your way because you're constantly learning something, and that's very important. So building your strengths. So when you know something and you know the basics of it, what you have to do is add more fuel to that and strengthen it so you can have more power. If you know how to play the violin, if you're passionate about it, then make yourself better learning that instrument. I know sometimes it can feel like, I feel like I already know everything, but there's always room for improvement. There's always room for you to start learning something. It does take time. It does take time out of your day, but when you start realizing that, you'll be happy that you know that. It's very important to feel very content with things in your life. When you start to realize that contentment comes from gratitude, when it comes whenever you feel happy about yourself, that's when true growth comes. And that's when a lot of people are like, well, I gotta have something before I have that. But whenever you start learning that if you're content with the things that you have right now, you definitely will be content later on when you have bigger and better things. Happiness doesn't come once you have finished that certain goal, but it comes whenever you're happy and you're content with what you truly have, when you realize that other people don't have what you have or the opportunities that you have, and you start to acknowledge those things, and you'll feel better about yourself. You start to acknowledge how life can be very, very full, and that's why gratitude is so important in the success of an individual. So be flexible. So when you're flexible, when you know that things are not going to go your way, you realize that you don't have to be perfect all the time. Being flexible is so important, because if you don't like this, then you know for sure you can try it somewhere. You can try something else differently. So we often feel like when things don't go our way, we feel upset, we feel angry, we feel like we have failed the world and other around us. But when you are flexible, you realize that there's things that you can't control, and there's outside things that are happening that you really can't manage. And when you start to acknowledge that, you will be happier. You'll lower your expectations, and therefore you'll feel better about how you approach certain situations or different problems, because you know for sure perfectionism is not accessible, and therefore you're not going to be worried about how things come your way. You know things will happen, but you don't think in a very upsetting way. Network with other people. I always like to tell people, whenever you start networking with other individuals, you're not just meeting new people, but you're also meeting their own network. Really, really important to invest time into those people that can propel you to the next level. Iron sharps iron. When you have people that have the same mentality as you and are able to grow equally, then you're able to succeed faster than if you're stuck with individuals that don't think like you. So building your strength takes time. And it takes time out of your day. And sometimes you will have to say no to things that don't give you that thing that you want. So it's very important to allocate some time out of your day to develop those skills that you've always wanted to encounter. Because if you don't do that now, then you'll be resentful later on when you realize that all this time has happened and you weren't able to do what you always wanted. So practicing a new instrument takes time. Mastering something new takes time. Learning a new language takes time. But if you dedicate yourself to that goal that you have in mind and you are very hyper focused, then you are going to see the results later on in life. So it's very important to pick up mentors that are willing to help you out in the long run. If you don't do that, then you will have problems later on when no one is self-made. Literally, we all have to have someone that we admire, someone that we trust, someone that can guide us. Athletes have coaches, and those coaches are able to help you out in the long run. So invest your time into the right things. So a good example is if you're someone who's not a really good singer, someone doesn't like singing, if you're spending all of your time and effort, your money into singing classes, that's going to take away time and resources from other things that you can potentially build upon on. So know and try to analyze the things that don't bring you any value to your life and cut them out, because time is very, very, very limited, and if you don't do your best to see what things are wasting your energy, then you will eventually feel like you're not going anywhere. Learn as much as you can possibly learn. I know sometimes we like to think that it's so important to stay in our lane, and we often do that all the time, and we're like hyper focused, and we're like, well, I can only study about science, I can study about history, I can't study about geography. But when you learn more things, you're able to get skills that can be transferred into other fields, and that's why it makes you a valuable person. I mean, a good example is Steve Jobs. Whenever he was doing all this, before he was doing all this, he signed himself into a class, and I don't remember what type of class, but it was like a calligraphy class. And thanks to that, he was able to develop a really good software for Apple. So Apple could have like a specific way of text, and that's why one of the reasons as to why Apple is such an incredible piece of software, because of how beautiful laid out the software was. So very, very important to learn from different fields, from different things, so you can transfer those skills into other things. Planning is very important, so I always recommend people to use a calendar, whether that's like a Google Calendar, or they have like a wall calendar, or their own little notebook where they can write down all the things that they need to do every single day, so they can hopefully get better. They're able to track their own goals later on in life. So the habit of planning is so important if you really want to progress, because every year you make goals, and the reason why you're not making those goals is because you are too focused in the present moment, and you don't look and zoom out on all the things that you wanted for that year, because you're not focusing every single day. So important to make short and long-term goals and long-term commitments. And I think that'll be it for this video. I might be doing a part 2, but this is what I'm gonna do. I hope you are able to learn more. And the book is called $1,000,000 Habits, 27 Powerful Habits to Wire Your Mind for Success. I recommend this book. If you have Kindle Unlimited, you can grab it from there. You can also buy this book, but I typically don't like to purchase any books because they're too expensive, and I don't recommend that. So I'll see you next time. Bye.